p.m. No action was taken in closed sessions. Before we provide a decision, I'm going to open it up for board discussion. Do we have discussion from the trustees? Mr. Rice.
Madam President, I am going to read from a clarification you requested from the administration, from the Commissioner of Education, regarding the threshold for the tax base ratio. And this is Floresville Independent School District versus Wilson County Commissioners Court. Paragraph B reads in part, accordingly, it is held that the student ratio for detachment purposes is properly determined when calculated to include all students attending public school who reside in the territory to be detached. It's my opinion that this supports the administration's assertion that the tax base ratio has not been met, which is a statutory requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Do we have additional discussion? Mrs. James.
Thank you, Mrs. Tolsan. Additionally, we discussed a little briefly the map that you provided and the description of the territory under consideration. And so we don't have a clear picture of alignment between the map and the territory. So we're not, I don't feel that this meets the Mets and bounds requirement for us to take action.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Do we have additional discussion? Ms. Helliger.
I don't know where to start with this. To be honest with you, I didn't know where this was going to go. So I'm going to be a little personal here, because I've heard a lot of personal comments tonight. So there's a lot of static here on these microphones.
Do we know what's causing the static? Everyone's microphone was up.
Okay. First of all, I'll start off with a message to Fort Bend ISD. It was very disheartening to have this community come in here into our home and talk about our schools the way they did today. And I'm extremely disappointed, but I know the work that we're doing as a district, and I'm challenging us to do everything that we need to do in order to not have a group of parents to come back in this boardroom and talk about us the way they just did. It was a slap in our face, okay? To the community, let me tell you about who I am. I'm an immigrant. The lady said she was an immigrant. I'm an immigrant. My parents came here to these here United States so that myself and my sisters can have a better life. Okay? I have 2 degrees. I want the best for my children. When I moved into Fort Bend ISD, like some of you all did, you all didn't look. I didn't really look, but at the time I didn't have children, okay? But when I found out my schools were exemplary at one time, okay? I have 2 adopted children. The lady said that she had 2 adopted children. I had to advocate for my kids from day one. I was told that my child was a gifted and talented child. Second day in school at Fort Bend ISD, they called me up and said, Ms. Helliger, your child can't read. So I had to advocate every day for my child as a parent. But I live on the east side of this district. I don't live on the south side. I don't live on the whatever side you are referenced in this meeting tonight. I live on the east side of this district. I ran for this board to make sure that all of our kids received what they needed from our schools. I got involved. I didn't run, I got involved. But what I heard of it today, I heard all the numbers, I heard all the ratios. I heard a lot about the thems and the us's today. That's not maybe how you attended, but that's how it came across. Okay? It was very disheartening. I want the best for my child. Let me start with that. I want the best for my child. But as board members and being in Providence community, we have to do what's best for all of our children at Fort Bend ISD. All of our children, including yours. So at the end of the day, we have to do what's best for all of our kids.
Thank you, Ms. Helliger. I really want us to do something about the microphones. The problem is they're all off. It's still happening, even when it's all off.
I think it's at record. You know, like I said.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Ms. Helliger. That was a very passionate statement. And I share much of your passion on this. I also have 2 adopted children who came here without speaking a word of English. But it was my wife who got really involved with their elementary school, was there all the time, helping, volunteering, looking out for those kids. And I appreciate the complexity of this issue, but I'm sworn to protect the district as a whole. That's what our job is. And I also found, like Ms. Helliger, some of the statements like, we turn our backs on the east side, to be a worn narrative and very offensive to the teachers, administrators, and this board, because we don't turn our backs on anybody. That's not our intention. And so that's where I stand.
Mr. Burdine.
One of the keys to success in schools is parent involvement. Our core beliefs and commitment statements values community involvement and collaboration in our schools. We encourage those that want more from our schools to get involved. Thank you.
Mr. George.
I just wanted to echo what my colleague said, and it is very hard, and I share Ms. Heiliger said it is very hard. Some of our parents coming here, and and I understand your feelings, and some of our parents saying, you know, we are put into a bad school, or whatever that is. And I feel it's a hard decision. It's a hard decision, and I have children in Fort Bend ISD, and I'm an immigrant, and we all come here. We all want the best for our children. And that's the reason why every one of us got involved. That's the very reason why I got involved also. And I believe until I got into this seat, I was always worried about my children. But then I realized we have 74,115 students this year. And I cannot make a decision about my daughter, about my son alone. And that's 74,000 children. And my wife is a teacher in Fort Bend ISD. She said things like, you know what? When I get home, I have 3 children. When I go to school, I have 22 kids. They are my children. And I think every one of our teachers feel that way. And I met almost all of our teachers. They feel the same way. And I'm so sorry you feel different. And that's the very reason why I echo what Mr. Bedeen was saying. When I was upset about whatever I see or whatever I wanted to get done, and I was upset about it, and I literally get involved. That's the very reason why I'm here. I'm sure most of our colleagues are in the same boat. That's why we are here. And I look forward for working with you. I look forward for whatever I can do. And I visited last 3 days more schools on east side of the districts, because I believe every student is important to me and every one of us here. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
So I'm going to go last. And I look in the face of this lady that sits in front of me who's very upset. And what I want to say is that I'm a mom too. I have 3 daughters that attend Fort Bend ISD schools. I have one with a disability that I have advocated for her entire life. I was you. I was you. Yes, ma'am. My daughter goes to what you would have called a D school. Absolutely. I live on the east side. I live further east probably than anybody in this room. Yes, I have been there. And my daughter all 3 of my daughters went to Heritage Rose Elementary. I still have one there now. If you would put up the children at risk stats for that school, it would be a D or an F school. Somebody said, what would you do? How would you feel if your daughter or your child or your grandchild went to this school? Mine does. She does. She goes right now. And she's GT. She's GT at an at-risk school. So here's the message I want to send. I hear what you're saying. This board hears what you're saying. We hear how you feel about the schools that you're zoned to. Your message has been received. And I understand that you're still going to go home upset if we don't vote the way you want us to vote. But what I want you to hear is that you have 7 people up here who are parents and who get it and who understand and who have to make decisions that are harder than any of the decisions some of us have ever had to make. I just want you to understand that. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the board adopt a resolution reading as follows. Whereas on April 8th, 2016, petitioner served Fort Bend Independent School District with a petition for detachment from Fort Bend Independent School District and annexation to Alvin Independent School District. Hereinafter, the petition requesting that the Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees, hereinafter, the board approved detachment of a territory known as Shadow Creek Ranch, Village of Diamond Bay. Hereinafter, the territory pursuant to Texas Education Code Section 13051, and whereas on September 26, 2016, the Board of Trustees held a public hearing to consider the petition. After hearing presentations of the petitioner and the administration, as well as public comment, makes the following findings. The petition for detachment has been signed by a majority of the registered voters residing within the territory. The territory is contiguous to Alvin ISD, the annexing district. Detachment would not reduce FBISD to an area of less than 9 square miles. The petition does not include a metes and bounds description of the territory, and Exhibit 4 of the petition does not adequately describe the territory to be detached with reasonable certainty. Detachment of the territory would reduce Fort Bend ISD's tax base by a ratio that is at least twice as much as the ratio by which it would reduce its membership, and therefore fails to satisfy the requirements of Section 13.051E of the Texas Education Code. Detachment of the territory would have negative economic impacts on Fort Bend ISD, including but not limited to a reduced ability to meet its debt service obligation and losses in state revenue attributable to lost taxable property and student attendance. The negative economic impacts caused by detachment will limit the opportunities of current and future FBI students. FBISD schools in the feeder pattern of the territory have made steady improvements in performance in recent years, have capacity for more students, and the harmful economic effects that would be caused by detachment will negatively impact Fort Bend ISD investment in programs and personnel that have contributed to the steady improvements. And lastly, considering the likely social impacts upon all students attending the relevant Fort Bend ISD schools, both students living within the territory and students living in other areas of the relevant attendance zone, the balance of social impacts would be negative. Therefore, be it resolved that the Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees disapproves the petition for detachment of the territory.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Helliger and a second by Mrs. James. Without further discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. The motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
By unanimous.
Second.
We stand adjourned.